started off being like, I understand, I have empathy for you, I will use your pronouns of choice. You know, I'm not going to say you're a woman, but you're a trans woman. And now I am realizing that all of those things are gateway drugs.
So right-wingers are continuing to absolutely lose their minds about Dylan Mulvaney.
To the co-opting of female sports and the word female and the word woman and breastfeeding and childbearing and menstruation, all the things that are under solidly the list of what is a woman. And I'm really done. I'm done. There is no such thing as somebody who's born a biological man who is secretly a woman, who can become a woman. At best, you are a trans woman. And even that I'm wrestling with. I really am. I don't even really understand what that is. You're a trans person. You're really a biological man who's got some gender confusion issues, and my heart goes out to you. But you're not a woman. Dylan Mulvaney, you put on a dress, you take a bunch of estrogen to grow something that approximates baby breasts. I don't know what those are. That's not what a woman is. You'll never be a woman. You can have the surgery. Dylan says they're getting bottom surgery. Go ahead, have your penis chopped off. You're still not a woman. Getting a surgeon to cut a hole down there doesn't make you a woman. You don't know the first thing about being a woman. You have no idea what the average woman has been through the course of her life, the challenges we have, the beauty of being a woman, the softness of being a woman, and you never will. You're never going to have it. Doesn't matter how many surgeries, doesn't matter how many hormones. And I'm done engaging in this fiction, Paul. I'm done. I have empathy, I have compassion, but I am not willing to abandon truth in the name of sparing feelings.
So this clip is amazing because it is part of a long continuing campaign of the political right to lash out at trans women in particular just for existing and really getting angry about what is a woman, because apparently the political right likes to define womanhood purely based off of the biology of reproductive organs and not necessarily anything else. Because you'll notice one of the things that this person says in this clip is that, oh, trans women will never know what it's like to be a woman. You'll never experience the same thing that we will. When the truth of the matter is, trans women experience a ridiculous amount of misogyny. In fact, to some degree, trans women experience more misogyny than cis women because, on some level, our society has just deemed it acceptable to just treat trans women however they feel. And so, what trans women will very often get is misogyny that is not filtered through the lens of what is acceptable. People, for whatever reason, feel like there just should be no boundaries with trans women. And so, trans women online, in real life, will get a ridiculous amount of sexual harassment, will get asked ridiculously invasive questions, and will face a bunch of deeply misogynistic comments on a very regular basis. And the numbers bear this out. All of the different ways in which misogyny impacts and harms cisgender women, if you look at the data, it is very clear that trans women are actually impacted by those even more. So on that front, I hate to break it to you, but yes, trans women very much share a lot of the same experiences that cisgender women do. And believe it or not, I know this is wild, there are actually plenty of cis women that deal with a lot of the same struggles that trans women have when it comes to like dealing with like fertility issues and things like that. Which I think is something that these right-wingers kind of have just forgotten, which is just the simple fact that mocking people or attacking people for various fertility issues that they may or may not have, generally speaking, is something that we have accepted as a society is something that you really shouldn't do. That it's pretty hurtful and just not an appropriate thing to say about somebody. But of course, because it's transphobic, then all of a sudden they feel like the rules don't apply anymore. And then they think it's perfectly acceptable to not only inquire about somebody's genitals, but also to speculate wildly about their fertility and to actively attack people for their perceived status and fertility. Another layer onto this that is just kind of funny and will definitely melt the brains of TERFs whenever this finally does become a more normalized thing is that it does seem as though our science is advancing to the point where uterus transplants for trans women will start to become a thing in like the next 10 years. And if that happens, you bet these right-wingers are absolutely going to be losing their minds about it, because then all of the things that they think somehow are an impenetrable biological barrier preventing trans women from fully experiencing womanhood will wither away. And then what will their argument be? Because really their argument right now boils down to their belief that women should just be baby factories. Because if womanhood isn't defined by the relationships you have with other people in society, how you understand and conceptualize yourself as a person, and facing similar struggles when it comes to things like misogyny and stuff like that, then to these TERFs everything really just boils down to two things, and one is chromosomes and the other is a uterus. But I hate to break it to you, there are actually plenty of cis cisgender women that have XY chromosome. And if we do get to the point scientifically where trans women are getting uterus transplants, well then that is a whole entirely different ballgame, isn't it? But you see, these people are so caught up in their preconceived notions of what they think is biological reality, when the truth is a lot more complicated than that. The reality is, when it comes to biological sex, that is not something that is really determined by any one particular thing. It is something that is approximated based off of a whole constellation of various factors. You can't tell whether or not somebody's male or female just by their chromosomes, nor can you tell just from their reproductive organ. It turns out that there are a lot of different features that people go off of when it comes to determining biological sex, not just for humans, but for every species on this planet. It's nowhere near as cut and dry as these right-wingers try to say that it is. And believe it or not, there's actually a very significant overlap as well between what you would think is stereotypically biologically male and what we think is stereotypically biologically female. In fact, most people in our day-to-day lives usually go off of secondary sex characteristics when they're trying to guess what gender or sex somebody might be. And those secondary sex characteristics are very much the product of hormones. You know, the things that many trans people choose to go on to change their secondary sex characteristic. And so while this may be hard to believe for a lot of right-wingers out there, but there are a lot of trans people out living their lives as themselves who aren't getting misgendered on a regular basis because they pass in our society as being their actual gender. Now, there's a whole conversation to have about passing and the sort of problematic nature of like passing as a concept, especially when you consider the fact that passing is something that somebody doesn't do, but is more so something that is imposed onto people. It's something that people are subjected to. But the ultimate reality is that when these right-wingers are freaking out about the existence of trans people, they are melting down over their entire concept of gender and sex, because the truth of the matter is, most cisgender people have not taken even 3 seconds to consider why they are the gender that they actually are. And they have a lot of preconceived notions of what it means to be a man or a woman. And without doing any type of reflection or understanding on that, whenever something comes up that challenges their preconceived notions, they just lash out and reveal the ridiculous, over-the-top misogyny that fundamentally is that at the root of what they believe it is to be feminine. And that is why you'll see these right-wingers say things that are deeply offensive to so many cisgender women. There are plenty of cis women that can't get pregnant. There are plenty of cis women that do not menstruate. And there are plenty of cis women that have high testosterone or grow facial hair and things like that. And so when you see these right-wingers freaking out about all these things and attacking trans women in particular, you'll notice that they will attack trans women on fronts that cisgender women also have to deal with. And so, while they will say, you'll never experience what it's like to live as a woman, the truth of the matter is, these people are propagating the same misogynistic nonsense that both cis and trans women have to deal with on a near daily basis.